Begin the current Daf, Mesechta Gitin Daf Lamed Aleph. Begin on the bottom of Lamed Beis, where we in the middle of finishing up the previous Daf regarding the halacha of doing mi'oimid, doing b'machshava, and just finishing up that part of the sugya that we discussed in the previous Daf regarding, because we were telling someone else, Yisrael is telling a Levi that what he has from him, and he has meiser for him, do we have to be suspected in the meiser is trumas meiser or not? That would depend on what we said, that the balabais could go ahead and be mafresh trumas meiser, and we said, well, it's not his, it's the Levi's to take off, and we said, yeah, it's going like Abelazar ben Gamla, who he holds that you could go ahead and take off the truma from the meiser that you didn't give yet. So I'm discussing today's daf for the next Mishnah that we're going to discuss, which is continuing the theme of the previous Mishnah regarding the chazaka, that when you mafresh, let's say you lent a kohen or a Levi, and you're going to separate based on their being alive because they owe you money and they get the meiser or the truma, so you can separate based on that. So a similar vein, the Gemara is going to say, "Hamanich peiris li is mafresh aleihen." If someone left peiris, let's say got a shipment somewhere and he has it in his storage house, and he's like, you know what, I know how much I have over there, I'll use that produce for trumas meiser for other meiser or for other produce that I have. Could he rely on that to say, oh, it's there, and he could just designate that as the trumas and meisers? Now, however, what happens if the produce was lost or got ruined? Then you have to be suspect for a period of 24 hours, which the Gemara is going to have a machlekes regarding which 24 hours are we talking about. But it probably didn't just happen right now. So when did it happen? You have to be suspect for a certain period of time that it was ruined. And then the Gemara gets into some interesting conversations regarding the Gimel Pro Compoit and Messiah, and there's 3 times a year that you have to check out the wine to see if it's still good quality, if it got ruined because of regarding, obviously, then you cannot designate it as meiser on the rest of your wine. When do you sell the grain, and the wine? When do you sell the oil? And also finishes up with a conversation regarding Ruach Kodem, regarding the eastern wind, regarding its quality, regarding its harmful effects on the world. So begin the current Daf Lamed Aleph, on the bottom of Daf Lamed Beis. So really the last thing that the Gemara had said, we had a brisa, which we had a few different interpretations of what the brisa was saying. The last interpretation was that of Ravashi. This is like around 10 lines up. And he said, look, I'll tell you what the brisa was saying. It's Yisrael who told the Levi, and my father told me that you have meiser by him, or your father has meiser by him. Either way, we're concerned that maybe that there's going to be trumas meiser inside of it, because since the father didn't say a certain amount, so you can't say that the father had fixed it because he didn't know how much it was over there. That to say that the meiser that the father was going to give to that Levi was going to have it taken off. But if he told him how much meiser you have by him, he said, of course, so he's not concerned with trumas meiser anymore. Why? Since it was a set amount, he knew how much it was. The Tata definitely would have taken care of the trumas meiser already before he gave it to you, and this that he said that he has meiser for you must have been already, the trumas meiser was taken. That's what the Gemara 4 lines up at the bottom of the Yom, it says, what are you talking about? He has permission to go and take a trumas meiser. This is the Levi zach. You give the Levi meiser, he takes off a tenth of that tenth. He gives it to the kohen. What are you saying? If you knew exactly how much meiser he had to give you, Mistama, he fixed it already. Give you a finished product. He was taking out the trumas meiser already. Could he do that? The Gemara says, yes, because Abelazar ben Gamla, because the ten in the Brisa, Abelazar ben Gamla, it says in the pasuk of Midbar, it says, "V'nechshav lachem tiru maschem." That this should be considered for you. The pasuk there says should be considered for you your truma kadagim and agoyim become leim and ayakeb. So it says it in the plural. What's the plural over here? As we turn to top of Lamed Aleph and Aleph, b'shtei trumas hakos medav. The pasuk is talking about 2 trumas. Now this pasuk is said by the Levium, which is that they have to take off their own meiser from their meiser. So it's that's what the pasuk is saying. Your truma, your elevation will be the way grain is from the granary, the way the wine is from the vat. That's how you have to do the same thing when you have to give it to the kohen. But it's talking about 2, because it says in the plural. Tiru maschem. What's these 2? Oh, because it's comparing. It's achas truma gedola, achas trumas meiser. It's comparing your trumas meiser which is this kadogim min agoyrin. It's comparing just like the grain from the grain which is truma gedolah, which is the first of the grain that a Jew separates from his granary. The pasuk is equating your trumas meiser that you're separating to truma gedolah. What is it comparing to? So on that says the Gemara. This is what is Abba Elazar ben Gamliel's opinion. Kishem to truma gedolah nitelas ba'im, just like truma gedolah, meaning the first thing that you separate that you give to the kohen, can be separated with an estimate. Meaning when the sages said that you take 1/50th, that you could separate that estimating. Meaning if you make a mistake, there's no isser over here, because biblically it's enough with one kernel of wheat to exempt the whole pile. Because the Torah didn't give a shiur, just as rashis to guncha, just the first of your grain. Now, Tais actually asks, he says, wait a second, so maybe you should say the same thing should apply to Trumas Meiser also. It should be enough for just one chita, because you're comparing it to Truma Gedolah. Says Tais, no, that's impossible, because the Torah says it has to be a Meiser, it has to be a tenth. So you take a tenth from the tenth. But what it is compared for, it shares other qualities. It can be taken off with, just like Truma Gedolah can be taken with an estimate, and uba machshava. What does machshava mean? So Rashi explains, machshava means to say that you could put your eyes on one side and look at it and say, hey, that's going to be the truma part. And you could eat on the other side, even though you didn't even separate it. Just with thought alone is considered a hafrasha. Kach trumas meiser. So the same thing is, but trumas meiser, even though its measurement is set from the Torah, that has to be meiser mina meiser 10 to the 10th, but it shares the other qualities of truma gedolah. They tell us ba'omer it can be taken with an estimate, you could just estimate, ubimachshava, and also with a thought. So Rashi says that both are being learned out from the nechshav. Tosfos has a whole conversation, what you do know from the puzzle, what do you know from the comparison, but from the nechshav that tells us that it's b'machshava, and also machshava means that you're estimating, not doing exact calculation. And but he says that this meaning to the contrary. Rashi says that both of them, that you learn out the halacha of machshava from b'nechshav. It says b'nechshav l'chem turumaschem, but b'nechshav means machshava. That yes, you see the pasuk is telling you both truma gedolah and trumas meiser can be done with machshava. But then he says that this, that you know the trumas meiser could be done ba'omed, an estimate. That's only because the pasuk is comparing it with the word turumaschem to the halacha of truma gedolah. But then continues the halacha kshem shish l'rishus l'balabais litum truma gedolah. Just like this, is really the main thing that we wanted it for. Even though these other halachas, Tosfos all arichas on these halachas, what does it mean? How does it work? But the main thing we want from our Gemara is, and just like shesh l'rishus l'balabais litum truma gedolah, obviously the homeowner has permission to separate truma gedolah. It's his grain, and he separates and gives it to the kohen. Kach yesh l'rishus l'balabais litrum trumas meiser. So too, he has permission to separate trumas meiser. So again, although the more complex halachas are those other parts that are regarding ba'omed machshava, what does it actually mean? How could that be done? But for what our practical purpose, for our sugya, what we brought this in for was for the last thing we just mentioned, that just like the balabais takes off truma gedolah, so you can take off trumas meiser, although really it wouldn't make sense because it's not had nothing to do with him. He gives the Levi a meiser, and then the Levi takes off a meiser on the meiser, gives it to the kohen. But the pasuk is equating trumaschem, the truma meiser, to the truma gedolah, and again that's why you could explain the brisa when the guy told him, the old Levi matata megazuk, that he has for you, and then he passed away. So you could say if he said didn't specify the amount, so he didn't know how much he had, so it can't be separate trumas meiser because it has to be 10 from a 10. But if he specified a kol, he said how much, then you can name on that there's no trumas meiser, and then you could go ahead and take it without separate trumas meiser. So that was the end of the previous daf. Now we continue with the halacha of the next mishnah. Like we said, this is really very similar to the theme of the previous mission, Daf Lamed, when we said if you lend money to a kohen or a Levi or an ani, lias mafresh alein mechalkan, that you know that those people owe you money, and you could separate your trumas, your meiser and truma, and you could take it for yourself, because knowing that based on that they're being still alive, because if they're dead, obviously we said that that's going to be different. So a similar type of a thing, says the Mishnah, manich peiros. Someone leaves peiros. He leaves it in a warehouse here somewhere out in Wisconsin. Someone owed him money, and he got like a whole truck, boatloads of produce. What's tiach with them, right? So he leave it at least mafresh trumas umaisrus. So what happens is that when he on his plantations, when he has all these stuff, it's a lot of money. He has to separate, give it to the kohen, to the Levi. He says, you know what? I have all that stuff over there. I know how much I have over there. I keep a calculation, my ledger, how much that is being designated over there by Truma Meiser. Now Tosfos does point out this must be told by Erev Shabbos or Yom Tov, because generally there's a halacha that you're not allowed to be mafresh shleim and amukif. Has to be in the same area to be able to be mafresh, and this is out somewhere, whatever, obviously, as the halacha is going to be talking about, that you don't know what the status of it is. So, Erev Shabbos, Erev Yom Tov, when you have no other choice, then we allow you, but in general, you wouldn't be able to do such a thing. So, but if someone did this, or mo'is, li'is mafresh alein ma'aser sheni, the halacha by ma'aser sheni is that you separate a second type, and then you could, unlike all the other Shumas and Ma'aser, you could deconsecrate it. You don't, because the halacha Ma'aser, you have to take it up to Yerushalayim and eat over there. It's going to be, how you're supposed to take U-Haul trucks and get all your thing up there. You could, Torah allows you to deconsecrate the monies, and monies are very easy to transport and bring it up over there. So let's say his money's separated somewhere. That is going to be the designation for the Ma'aser Sheni produce that he could eat the Ma'aser Sheni. And when one day he'll take all the money, go up to Yerushalayim, take a family trip, go up for the Yom Tovim. So the halacha of both of these cases are mafresh alein. You could separate based on those things. With a presumption, with a status quo that they're still around, you could rely on them, and then you could eat these quote unquote tevel, these untyped produce that you have, saying, oh, their truma is in those produce that I have designated for that, and he could constantly do that. He could constantly say, okay, I know I have a calculation, see the black filling up, in the graph about how much I still have left in that pie. But, says the Mishnah, if he goes to check it out, and he finds that Abdu, they were ruined, they were lost, he has to be concerned for those untyped produce that he had remedied with the guarantee of these things. Turns out the mice had eaten up all his stuff over there. Now, if he didn't eat yet what he had separated based on that produce over there in that warehouse, obviously we'd have to separate from the produce, because maybe when he said that their truma should be in the payers that I designated, maybe they were already ruined. Meaning, if they got ruined later, obviously nothing to do with him. He had separated a good truma. Okay, truma lost out, so mice lost out, whatever. But we don't know. Maybe the mice had eaten it up months ago, and just a few weeks ago he went and he separated like a whole, loads and loads on the thing over there. So he has to be concerned for how long of a period does he have to be concerned that to say, oh, it might have been ruined. A period of me'es li'es, a 24-hour period, which Gemara doesn't explain where is that 24-hour period. But what Taisa asks, interesting, is that in different Maslam me'es li'es, he says, why by the Gemara and Nida does the Rabbanan ask, why did we say that there's a halacha of a 24-hour concern by a Nida, and here the Gemara doesn't ask on that. So Taisa says, because there by the woman, she's what's called Isha Margeshes Ba'atzma. She senses usually when she has a period. So it would make sense that you would say Dayashaita, like Shammai actually holds that. You say, no, a woman finds dam. You don't say it was there for 24 hours, you say it was right now. And if the rabbis want to penalize her, let her penalize her from the last time she did a bedika. But over here, it makes sense. Why should we assume it just happened right now? So therefore, that's the halacha of the Mishnah that, you got to be suspect. Well, we'll see which 24 hour, but for 24-hour period, we're going to say, maybe it was already ruined already, and whatever you've done in that 24-hour period is going to be you're going to be liable for.
I was that a question. We always going to discuss it.
Yeah, no. So, but the Gemara just asked which meisleis. The Gemara's not asking why meisleis. And neither they ask why do we say that she was in need of 24 hours? Maybe it's like kandim tzikanoya, is it dayashaita, is it happened right now? That's what the Gemara asks. And here the Gemara doesn't ask. The Gemara takes it as an assumption. Of course, you have to be concerned. Who knows? It might have been whatever. So, Shaila's what is the Meisle Ace? That's going to be the Gemara's question. But that's the opinion of the Rebbe Lazar. And Rabbi Yehuda, he says that B'shleisha Prokim Boitkim Esayayin. And 3 times in the year, we check the wine. So what does it have to do with what we're talking about over here? The reason why he's saying this is because if you left wine, which is the case that we're discussing, to be mafresh on it, let's say other wine that you're producing, you have to check it to make sure that it didn't sour. Because you cannot take truma from vinegar, but it sours, on wine. So he says, 3 times a year, you got to check the wine. What are the 3 times a year? So one is Bekidum Shal Moitze HaChag. Kidum is like the east. When the eastern wind blows, Matze Yom Tov Sikis, that's one time. Ubaytzor Smoda, when the blossoms fall off and the grapes are seen when you see the clusters as they're coming out, and ubishas kanisas mayim bebaiser. So there's 2 interpretations of Rashi what that means. When it's what's called kapul halavin. Halavin is really a white bean, but it's the size of a grape. Then they're called beiser. Now, the moisture goes in and grows inside of the grape, that you could squeeze it out a little bit. That's what knisas hamayim means. So when the water gathers inside the grapes when it's in the beiser stage, that's already it's already a little bit moist and juicy. Or another interpretation is they would crush the grapes when it was beiser, which is the small stage of when it's a grape. And they would put it into water and they would make it vinegary as for a dip. So at that stage when they would put it into the water, this beiser in the production, that's the third time that you should check out the grapes to see if they're still good quality. What? Yeah, the wine to see if that's wine, grapes, yeah. So check the wine when it's at that stage when people do that. Now, so the Gemara says, "My me'esla is this that you told me that okay, you come there and you go, oy vey, what's to do? Come in, you see the whole thing is infested, the whole thing is ruined. So you said, okay, you've been separating based on this. Now we have to be chesed for a period of me'esla. So my me'esla is an interesting machlekes. Says the Gemara. It says me'esla shall bedika, meaning, like for example, Rabbi Huda who said you got to check it out at certain times, but even if not, the last time you checked, now you're checking. This time that you came now, you found this is what Rashi said. You came now and you found it lost, ruined, whatever it's called, Ganovim stole, whatever. You have to be concerned that maybe yesterday at this time it got ruined. So if you made meiser on this from the last 24-hour period onto other produce, you would have to separate misafik. But more than that, the Rabbanan would not concern. Rather, we would rely on the chazaka, which we always have a chazaka. Last we checked, it was there. So it's to a chazaka. Now it's not here anymore. Okay, maybe it happened right now. But for a period of 24 hours, then we have to say that maybe it happened 24 hours ago. That's the first opinion. Rabbi Elazar ben Antignis, Ayim B'Shom, Rabbi Elazar ben Yanai, so he says that as a Gitin Daf is me'esli eis shel hanacha. Actually, 24 hours from when you put it down. Meaning you have to be concerned retroactive all the days until 24 hours of when you originally put it down. Meaning, what's interesting is he translates it totally different. He says, 10 months ago, whatever it is, whenever you last came here and you put down the produce and you put it in the storage bin, for one day we will presume that it's like it was. But from then on, it's already a suffix. And then you have to go ahead and take off truma from all those times. So when we say me'esli eis, it's a very different understanding according to both. One that you have to be me'esli eis means for the last 24-hour period, from now that I found it's ruined, okay, but for them I'll have a chazaka. Other one says no. Me'esli eis means to say that's the only time we'll assume that for sure it was around. But after that, all the months in between are all part of the suffix. You have to mafish me'esli.
Obviously, told me that you didn't check it for 10 months.
Right, so whatever it was, 3 weeks, 10 months, whatever it was, you didn't check, exactly.
If you did check it, it's...
Yeah, if you checked, you checked. Yeah, hanacha just means to say that the time of when you were there last, So the Gemara asked, however, the wording of our Mishnah Tanan seems to indicate that Mishnah said if it got lost, ruined, whatever, you have to be concerned for a period of 24 hours. Now, it sounds like that dafka one day are you concerned. So Bishlam according to one that says 24 hours from this time that you're checking and you see it's ruined. Shopper, it makes sense, you see it's for a 24-hour period. According to one that says that you only get 24 hours from when you originally had put it down. So that means all the days are suspect besides the first day. So Haimi Ace Ace, this is saying from Ace Ace that you're concerned retroactive Admi Ace Ace mi Baile. It should have said up until a me'esli, not me'esli, up until the me'esli ace, with the first 24-hour period, then you'd be chayshel the Gemara Kashi. Yeah, it's not a tiyuf. As a Kashi, the wording seems to indicate that it's like the Manda Amar, that it only the last 24 hours that you're concerned for. Because according to Manda Amar Shal Anacha, then you should have said ad, not me'esli. Ad me'esli. Now, the Mishnah had said that this is all Divrei Belazar, so it didn't bring down a dispute, it just says Divrei Belazar. So that Amar Rebbe Elazar, the Amayra, says Chalukah Nalav Chavedev Al Rebbe Elazar. As Rashi points out, Rebbe Elazar ben Pedas is the Amayra in the Gemara, and Rebbe Elazar ben Shamua is the Tana that we have in Mishnayos and Brises. So he says that they disagree on Rebbe Elazar, and they say that no, we're always going to be concerned because since we find it ruined and all the produce that was fixed through those produce, you'd have to go back and separate it. You don't even get, well, either one. Either you don't get all those days besides the last 24 hours, or you don't even get that first 24-hour period, it's all suspect. There's not like the Mishnah says mikvahs. Mishnah says mikvah that was presumed to be complete. And this is those shmeitza type of sugyas, shenimdad, that it was measured at a later point in time. And you come, you find it's missing. Oh, right, the mikvah, it was, no one checked it, and the man with the long beard, the one who was always checking things, making sure everything's wrong in the community, comes and says, the mikvah is nicht git. Right, everyone's scrambling to see what's going on. So what's the halacha now? What do you do? So it says, Kol tarish and asal gabav. So all the purifications that were done on the mikvah, meaning trumas and taharas that were utilized with it, meaning with the vessels of the people that are table from their tumah, in that mikvah, at all time, l'mafreya, going retroactive, backwards, being whether the mikvah was b'shus hayachid in a private domain, because that's halacha, since we're in a situation of suffix, which we're not sure what the status was. Generally, the halacha is suffix tumah b'shus hayachid. When you have a doubt regarding tumah in the private domain, the halacha is going to be the suffix is tumah. But in this situation, being b'shus harabim, even in the public domain, where generally the halacha is that if you have a suffix in where people are traversing, it's an open area, it's the suffix is going to be tar. Here, it doesn't make a difference. All of the things that you had done ta'aras based on this mikvah are all tameis, they're all tamei, because when do we say suffix tomei b'shus harabim going to be tar? That's only when you have a suffix. Did the shadetz touch? Did the shadetz not touch? We could say maybe it didn't touch. But over here, with the person or the vessel, whatever it was that's kikim tzad the mikvah, was definitely tamei, and now you want to be mekar with the tvila that was a suffix, because I don't know if the mikvah was good. Mikvah is, who knows, who checked the mikvah last? You don't have like in those lavatories, they say last checked and last inspected and at 12:43, whatever. No one knows. So you can't be mekar with suffix.
He is a stronger guy, because the mikvah is pussy. But there you don't know if it touched or didn't touch.
Yeah, but I'm saying you could say that
one
it
thing you know for sure, that it right now is no good. So it's a question of you go backwards or not.
Right.
It's a stronger.
But at the same time, you could say that the mikveh had a chazukah. The letzte Mal, I'm so du gekommen gemacht, the mikveh is given kushet. That's going to happen right now. I should say that it wasn't good back then. Well, that's part of what we're discussing actually here. That's part of the shmuz. Because that's what we're coming to say, that they disagree with Rebbe Lazar. And Rebbe Lazar's like, no, it's no chazukah. Wie lang? Either up until before the 24 hours that just preceding now, or at least the first day you'll have a chazukah. No chazukah. All the way back from the last time you made it, the second the guy who made the mikvah walked out, you lost the chazukah. What? Yeah, whatever. I'm saying, you wonder why we're talking about daf kataras? Yeah, but anything, yeah. Well, I'm saying if you didn't table, if that's ma'akiv, right? Charles, if that's ma'akiv. Anyways, you have a Moshe. He probably went swimming in the ocean. He probably had, anyways. He probably anyways had a tefillah somewhere. But so the Gemara says, you see, they disagree with him. They don't hold that you get epizah chazukah. So the Gemara says, shita the chalukim. Of course, read this Mishnah Mikvahs. What is Rebbe Lazar Pemidas the Amayr coming to tell us? It's a mifurish Mishnah, of course, in Mesechtas Mikvahs, that there's no chazakah even before 24 hours. So what do you need the Amayr to tell me? Says no more. No matter what you say, I'm afraid. What do the Chacham mean? This Mishnah that retroactive everything's gonna be tummy is me'es li'es, whichever me'es li'es you say. But maybe lamafreya for whatever that is. But I wouldn't say maybe it's for everything. No, that might as well. No, it's for everything. You go all the way back to the last time you know for sure that it was good, but you don't get any chazakas in this case of the mikveh, and therefore they would disagree also regarding the halacha of our Mishnah. If you mafresh alei and trumas amais, you come back, it's never. Said no, everything is now in suffix. You would have to separate everything because of that doubt. Now in the Mishnah, which interesting conversation, it came up because in our Mishnah that you got to check to make sure it's still good quality, but it gets us into interesting conversation. He says the gimel perak v'chulu, and 3 times a year you check out the wine. So one of the times was, as the Mishnah had said, the first time was bekidum shel matzachad. After Sukkot, there's this eastern wind that comes. So the Gemara explains, Tanu Lintna Braisa, bekidum shel matzachad. When we said it's the eastern wind of Matziyam, that means shel tekufa. What does that mean? Meaning, if it already had entered what's called Tekufas Tishrei, which is the ordinal equinox, then is when you have to check. But if it's still Tkufas Tamas, meaning the Zimitza, still summertime, then no. Because Tais actually says it's not possible that it can be Mamshuk. He says, maybe it could. But the point is that it's only if it's already Tkufas Tishrei. Then it's the Easter window. The reason why you got to check at these times is because the Empress Sky Tufu, maybe something affected it. So only if it's already Tkufas Tishrei and it's Matzah Sikkis, then you'll have to check it. But if it's still Tkufas Tamas, then you don't have to. Now, a related conversation regarding 3 times a year. So Tanya Linda Bryce, Yehuda says, "3 times a year do you sell the grain? One is Lefnei Hazera, one is before the planting season, Ubishas Hazera, and during the planting season." Which Tosfos wonders. He says that all sounds like the same period to me. There's not really a major gap between before the planting and when you're planting. So he says no. During the planting means actually Seif Hazera. It means at the end of the planting. You plant everything that you needed to, and that you just like missing that last bit. That's b'shas. That would be a gap of time of the whole planting season. And then the third time is a Preis HaPesach. So some Gemaras have on the side from the Gilyon, Preis means a period of 15 days before the Yom Tov, and the reason why it's called Preis is like the Bartanura says in Shkolim, because since 30 days before the Yom Tov, Yisraelim B'Doshim B'Hilchas HaRegel, so Preis means a Lashon Prus of half, which half of that 30 days before the Yom Tov is called Preis. So we say 15 days before Pesach is the third time that you sell the grain. Now, there's also 3 times a year that you sell the wine, which is B'Preis HaPesach, 15 days before Pesach, B'Preis HaTzeret, 15 days before Shavuos, B'Preis HaChagim, 15 days before Sukkot, basically by the Shul Shirgulim is when people need the wine, and 15 days before is when you sell it. Aveshemen, when you sell oil, is Matzeres Ve'elechet from Shavuos and onward. Says Gemara, wait a second, are we learning the Daf today? We're checking the financials, and L'may Hilchas of Zukman is why are we saying when we sell things? So Amar Rava V'Temer Papa says L'shutfin. It's for partners. What do you want with partners? That one guy cannot sell without his colleague, without his partner's consent, besides for these seasons. During these seasons, you don't have to consult. And if he sells and it ends up going up in price afterwards, you can't come with time and say, well, we could have made double the money. What do you sell? No, this is the season when we sell. So it's important to know the season that you sell, because a partner could do it without the other partner. Other times he has to ask him to say, okay, Max, you want to sign off on this, whatever this and that, fine. But these times you don't have to. I'll tell you some discussion regarding a little bit more specifics about asking, consenting, we can make more money. But during these, that's what the purpose of this halacha is. It says, okay, what's after these periods? So the Gemara says, Kol Yomer then Pirkihu. Every day after this is already, it's time to sell. Meaning, it starts at this, but after that, it continues. Yeah, so till when? Because then you have other periods, if it's 3 times a year. How long? Vilan Gaitis. It doesn't say till... what?
Isn't this his question?
No, he wants to know, but what's right after? Is that, so it says, the only problem is if it's Kol Yom HaPirkei, probably it's production.
It's all year.
No, but then you said 3 times a year you sell the grain, 3 times a year you sell the oil.
That year's...
Yes, but then what does it mean 3 times a year?
That's what I'm saying. It's all year.
So you're asking a kasha. Yeah, in the Chanaan.
Maybe it's that year's production.
Yeah, so what's 3 times a year?
That year's production, then you just get rid of it.
But I'm saying that's...
After the 3rd time.
Oh, after the 3rd time. Oh, could be that's what he's saying. He's saying maybe noch the dritte mul.
Then every day.
Then it's meaning not after each
That's
period.
good for one.
Or whichever one that's stock.
Why?
Because 3 has different times.
Right, but he's saying after the last time of that year's produce, noch the letzte mul, then kol yom HaPirkei. Meaning there's 3 times a year. After the first and the second time, no. Then it's over maybe. After the 3rd time, no, that's till you got rid of the stock.
Until you get that year's supply.
Till you got rid of the supply. Then there's a new year's supply of every year you had a new supply of grain and of wine. So that old stock, fakoif, because it's already the expiration date is already.
So you're saying whatever I didn't get rid of, the next year,
No.
For the stock that I still have, I shouldn't sell without consent of my partner.
No, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like that. What the way he wanted to say is that when
If you got rid of all your stuff, then I don't need the zmanim. The whole idea of the zmanim is that
Right.
at that time there's demand and therefore
You don't have to-
sales
you don't have to
anyway
get-
at a good price.
Right.
So I don't have to ask my partner. But
Right.
if I've sold everything, then I have nothing to sell.
Right, there's the
Right,
next
let's say
year,
you didn't
the
sell
next
everything.
time, when you have new stuff to sell, and then you only have that zman.
I don't have new stuff. When it comes to tvia, when I sell,
Well, every year you have new stuff.
Each year the news.
No.
Times a year.
no,
With the wheat, you have
When
spring wheat, you have different wheats.
Shas Hazera, I don't have tvia. I sell from last year.
I hear you saying he's going to say that what's b'shas hazera. Okay, but that's
Shas
he's saying.
Hazera means that because
Right.
everyone needs to
Ah.
it needs seeds.
Right, but he's saying there's like spring wheat and
There's
there's,
different types of wheats. They grow different times of the year, and they're planted because of that.
so it
There's
could
spring
be a
wheat, winter
stock,
wheat, they're
right?
different seasons.
Good
So
child.
the kufa they're talking about could be a kufa 3 or 4 months, and after that they're saying after that every day
Oh,
you
that's
sell
a
every day
different
you stock. That's where the Pesach cuts off.
It wasn't Matin of the Moshav.
I can tell you what he says.
What does he say?
That's the time that is kicking the tvir.
That's time the what?
The kicking the tvir. So they need the zero. Then.
Oh, so I'm saying, but which stock? But I'm saying that which stock?
He
That's-
translated that it's all the time. He doesn't say that.
He says all the time, meaning after each one. You're saying, okay, you have to know then. What does that mean? What do you have other periods for? Okay, so now regarding the one of the time
It
seasons
says
that was.
every day following the above times.
Yeah, but again, right. So then you have the question. So what does it mean? So what does it mean? 3 seasons. Yeah. So one of the seasons was kidum of the eastern wind when it blows matzah sikah. So once it's almost a very parenthetical, but once we mention the eastern wind, so the Gemara gets into the whole conversation regarding the eastern wind. So there's a mafta yoina. We know that the Sefer Yoina has a pasuk vayikez reyach hashemesh, that it was when the sun was shining. V'yeman elikim ruach kod mecharishas. We know the story that Yoina was he was all upset, depressed that he had this the Nineveh was saved. He's sitting outside the city, and this beautiful tree comes up, and Hashem goes, and the sun's shining, and he brings a strong eastern wind. Now, so the Gemara says, "My charishas." What does this mean? A ruach kod charishas. So Omar Rabbi Yehudi says, "B'shashim nasheves," because when the eastern wind blows, oiseh tulam tulam bayam, it makes furrows in the ocean, meaning like furrows of a plow. Charisha is like lashon of charisha, plowing, because it's very strong. So it makes these furrows in the ocean, these like big waves in the ocean. So I'm like, Rabbi says, Yach, if that's the case, that's what charishas means, then Haim of Siv, what do you do with the pasuk over there that says, so it says over there, V'tach HaShemesh, al rish Yoina b's'alav. So the sun was hitting on the head of Yoina and he was fainting. Meaning the pasuk is coming to testify how hot the world was. And you're telling me that the pasuk is in the middle of telling me the strength of the might of the waves of the eastern wind, and that's why it changed the wording and it mentioned the word charishas? But then it shouldn't be talking about how hot he is, if it's talking about the might of the eastern wind. So rather Rabbi says that b'shoshim nasheves, when it blows in a hot period, so it's very hot. Because mashtekes kol haruchos mipaneha, it actually silences all the other winds in front of it, and it nullifies the cold of the other winds, and that's why the pasuk changed to call it charishas, like a word of a chedesh, of someone who can't talk, because it cancels the cooling effects of the other winds. That makes sense why the pasuk is but according to you, you're talking about a strong wind. What does it have to do with the pasuk zog that he was hot and he was passing out? If you tell me that it's a chadishas, it makes it like a chedesh, it was kenesh and everything is quiet because it cancels the cooling effect of the rest of the wind. Shtayich was the zug, so why you saying chadishas? That's why he said that word. So that you know that, but your pshat doesn't really make so much sense. So this was the pasuk in Eiv. It says that your garments are warm, v'hashket edetz midarim, when the earth is silenced from the southern wind. What does this mean? When are your garments hot? When the cold southern wind is silenced. Who silences the southern wind? It's the eastern wind that silences it. When it's blowing the eastern wind, it silences all the other winds in front of it. So you see that when your garments are starting to get hot, taking off that jacket, that shirt's coming off soon. Why are you calm? It's because there's no more southern wind, which is cooling. Well, why isn't it there? Because the eastern wind silences all the other ones. So that's mamish like this pshat that we're saying that it's called this charishis because it's like it's everywhere in the sound. There's no cool wind that's blowing. It's the eastern wind. In case you wanted to know when you're very hot, which wind to point at and say whatever. It's the eastern wind. Rav Huna, Rav Chizda, Rav Yassi, they were sitting. So Geniva was passing by. So one says to his friend, let's get up, let's stand up from him. The Bat Oryanhu, he's a Talmud Chacham. So the other one says, we should get up for someone who is a rabble rouser, a guy who makes fights, because he had a fight with Mar Ukva, who was the Abdezin, as the Gemara says in the first paragraph of Zayin Aleph, that he was sent a letter. He says, there's people that are making my life difficult. I could give them over to the government. And the Gemara explained over there that was Geniva because he ended up being in chains. So he's making fights with everyone. In the meantime, he walked over to them. He sees two Talmid Chacham sitting and learning. He walks over. Ken Gitlan and this Geniva. He says to them, what are you guys learning? What are you guys handling? So they said to Beruchas, we're handling the sugya about winds. He said to them, it says, says there's 4 winds that blow every single day. The northern wind blows with all of them, meaning the northern wind is very pleasant. It's not too hot, not too cold, sounds like the perfect vacation. Right? It sweetens all the rest of the winds. That's the northern wind. Because if it wasn't like that, if you didn't have the northern wind, so then you can check on your phone next time you see which winds are blowing. You can get excited, get up. The eastern wind is going to get hot. The northern wind is going to be perfect. Whatever, the southern wind is a little cool. Now you can suddenly start looking and appreciating it on your phone. So if not for the northern wind, the world wouldn't last even for one moment. Now the southern wind is the strongest of them all. Velmali Benetz, or who's Benetz? Rashi does a malach that's made like a hawk. So if not for this malach that's made like a hawk, Mamida that holds with its wings the southern wind back, if not for that, it would destroy the whole world in place of it. Shlomo says in the pasuk in Eve, when Hashem was rebuking Eve, he says, Eve, you're complaining about your life? Was weißt du, was verstehst du? Weißt etwas? Weißt du, was meint Gott? You think from your understanding, you're going to have Ya'aver? What's Ya'aver? Rashi is like a term of Evrasai, which is his limbs, meaning Netz is that malach, which is like the hawk, like he stretches out his wings. You think from your understanding the hawk stretches out his wings? Yifr is kanaf, the same one that he spreads out his wings to the south, because it's the southern wind. So Hashem says, device you have guide. You're able to make that the wind should stop and go on this and that, but the point we're trying to bring is that the Benet, this malach, is what holds back the southern wind from destroying the world. Continuing this theme, Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Kabayasi, they were sitting. Rav Nachman by Yaakov. So Rav Nachman by Yaakov was passing by. The Yosef Biguharka de Dahava. Basically a Cadillac. He passed by with a wagon that was made like a box that they had royalty pass by, and it was made out of gold. And it was stretched, it was spread out over it. These curtains made with this chelis dye, which is similar to like this greenish bluish color. And Rabbi went to him. Rav Nachman, he didn't go to him. He says, yeah. He sees this beautiful, the Cadillac driving by with the tinted windows. He says, and he says, maybe this is from people from the Rish Galus. They were the wealthy ones, they were the influential ones. The Rish Galus, who was the head of all the Jews in the diaspora. Rava needs them, But I know, I don't need them. So this is actually, Machlekes Rashi tells exactly which Rav Nachman is which, but Rashi says Rav Nachman by Yitzchak was Chasna de Nasiya Haba. He was the Aydem, the son-in-law by the Nasi, as the Gemara says of Hunav Koch. I don't need protection. I don't need pay. I'm the Aydem by the Nasi. I get whatever I need. Rav needs, so you let him go over. Now, Kedachazid Rav Nachman Yaakov, but when he saw it's the great Rav Nachman Yaakov, also he went to him. So because he saw who it was, they rolled down the tinted windows. Now, Gully, Nachman Yaakov went and he revealed Ludade to his arm. Why? Because the eastern wind was blowing, and as we said, when the eastern wind is blowing, it silences all the cooling winds, so it's very hot. He said, Shad Yenashiv. So Rashi says shadi is the word of like shida, which is the box, meaning the wagon is blowing, meaning it's hot. Taisus says that don't say that shadi means a shade, like a certain shindala, a demon. He says that's why it's cold, that's why it was harsh. But he says no, it just the different winds are called different names. He brings interesting. Each one has a different name. The eastern wind's called Shusa, west wind's called Urya, northern wind called Astana, Ruch Drum is called Shadya. It's just the name of the southern wind. Shadya Nashim. Basically the which wind is blowing, and therefore Rashi says it was the eastern wind, and therefore it's hot. So therefore he rolled up his sleeves. Amar Rabbi says Hachem Rav. This is what Rav says, that the eastern wind is so harsh that Ishma Pelasboy. It causes a woman so hot that even a woman can miscarry because of it. Shmuel says, but even a pearl in the sea, in the oyster, will rot because of the eastern wind. He says, even the semen, within 3 days from its discharge, that's in the woman's womb, will putrefy because of the eastern wind. All three pshatim are all expounded in the same pasuk in Hosea. The pasuk says, "Kihu," because him, even though that bein achim yafri, that amongst brothers he'll be fruitful, Yaveh kadam, but the eastern wind is going to come. No, but this is with him. That's the thing. Even with him 3 days. Yeah, noch did I take? It's masrachas, but with him, even with him 3 days, usually has potency for 3 days. Even with him 3 days. Yaveh Kadim, the eastern wind is going to come. Ruach Hashem in Midbar Oila, the wind of Hashem from the desert will go up. Yevish Mekare, it's going to dry up its source, etc. Which the pasuk says, V'yechad Mayane, his fountain is going to dry up. Huyishta Itzer Kol Klichemda, it's going to destroy the treasures of all his precious vessels. So the Gemara shows that these terminologies are all going to reference these three pshatim of what we're talking about regarding the eastern wind. Yevish Mekare, drying up his source, this refers to the source of the woman, meaning the makar is generally a reference to the uterus of the woman, that the fetus inside will die because of the eastern wind. And his fountain will dry up. This the fountain is from the man, that's the semen in the woman's uterus. He'll destroy the treasure of every precious vessel. This refers to the pearl in the sea, and that's what the pasuk is saying. It says the eastern wind is going to come, and it's going to cause all these three things. So you see, all three pshatim are referenced here in this pasuk. Now, explaining this pasuk, Amar Rav, he says, Adi Sudahu. This thing was from this Bnei Surah, the Daiki Kroi, that they are always precise regarding psukim, that they said the following pshat. What is the pasuk telling us? That between brothers he will be fruitful. What is that referring to regarding the eastern wind? We said other things in the pasuk. What's the beginning of the pasuk of Kihu bein achim yafri, that Yoveh kad meruach Hashem? So Rabbi says, Afila, even as a Gitin Daf of Lamed Beis Amar Aleph, shufta, which is the handle, bikufina, in the hole that's on the top of the mara of the spade of the tool, even that rafia is going to get soft, because generally it's tightly pressed between the two sides of the hole. So you call it bein achim, between the brothers, that it's connected. Even that yafri is the lashon of rafia, is going to get soft. So even the handles are going to get loose because of the eastern wind. He says, he says even the peg in the wall, you're hanging stuff up, rafia, it's going to get loose, but it's going to dry up because of the heat, and it's going to get loose. He says, even a reed that's woven into a basket, rafia, is going to get loose. Again, like Rashi says, from the word yafri, which could be rafia or yafri, it's the same pei reish, that all these things, they get so loose, it gets so hot, they get so that besides these three things that happens, the beginning of the pasuk is referring to these other things, bein achim, which is where it's connected between the two sides. Even that's going to get loose. And hadalach kalaget, which I'll return to the third paragraph. So it's getting paragraph kalaget that spoke about again basically the same theme that we've been speaking about of hamei beget, regarding bringing and delivering the get and writing the get. Bring it to any time.